Melanie Wade Leslie, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Jeff.
In fact, when I first started doing this series of speaking to artists, your name was one of the first ones that popped in my head.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, because when I see your artwork, and we're sitting in front of one of your paintings right here, there are several things that come out immediately to me. First of all is the subject matter, which we'll get to in a second, which is a lot of horses, equine art. But the other thing is the dreamy feeling I get when I see your art. It's many layers. There's a lot of things going on. And I just want to get into that a little bit. We can talk a little bit. So tell us first, would you describe your work as dreamy?
Yeah, moody or dreamy, I guess, is a good word for it.
Because when I look at it, like this piece we're sitting in front of here, it looks like a memory, something that I've seen before, but I'm not 100% sure. And it looks to me like it's from this world, but another world.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
And the subject matter is often horses. Can you talk to us a little bit about your relationship with horses and where this comes from?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I've been a horse lover since as far back as I can remember, and was engaged in, having access to a horse when I was a child, and then finally getting my own horse when I was in high school, and still have horses. And so they have been such a balm for the soul for me growing up. I grew up in a kind of stressful environment, and my time with the horses really helped to soothe my spirit, get me away from that stress momentarily, and just focus on them. And in my later years, I've discovered more scientific evidence how that occurs. But at the time, it just felt magical or something, So I do have a very strong affinity for the horse, the equine spirit. So that's kind of where my art kind of. I used to work, Jeff, with trying to make the horses be photographic reality when I was painting the horses, but I tired of that. It was like I was just reproducing what God had already created, and I wanted to convey more of a spiritual connection to them, or more of my own response to them, and in some ways, sometimes transcending from the physical to the metaphorical, or the physical to the spiritual, is kind of what I strive to present in my work. So.
Well, you're nailing that, I think, because I definitely do feel a spiritual connection to your pieces. Again, the dreaminess of it all kind of just invites me in, and then kind of rolls me around a little bit. So for those of us who don't have a lot of experiences with horses, what is it about the horse that lends itself to that therapeutic value? I've had a few experiences with horses, not a lot, and when I get around them, I feel a little bit of fear, if I'm being honest, because they're massive animals. They're all muscle. I've never seen a fat horse. And I just feel like, if I fall out of this thing, I'm going to get hurt really bad, or if it stomps me or whatever. What is it about, what is that human equine relationship that is therapeutic?
Well, there's several things that are involved there. One of which is the horse has this immense capacity to read our body language. And the horse can actually notate, and does notate, a person from as far as 60 feet away. They have what's called an electromagnetic field from their heart. Like our human heart is about 6 feet. Theirs is 60 feet. So they can size us up from a distance, and even if they don't look like they're paying any attention to us, they can tell if you're very nervous, or if you're angry, or they can kind of pinpoint what your mental state is, and then they respond accordingly. So horses that come up to you immediately, a lot of times are attracted to what's going on inside of you. If you're calm and very, inviting, they want to be in your energy. And if you're not, they stand back a little ways to figure out if you're going to get out of your head and into your heart more, or if you're going to stay in that. And so what's beneficial about that is the more that you are with them, the more you subconsciously start to match their sense of being. Horses live totally in the present. They do have some memories, but they don't dwell on the past. They don't look at the future, they don't know what's coming tomorrow, and they don't worry about it. But they stay really in the present, and they have a lot to teach us about doing that.
I was going to say, what you just said is a perfect reminder to all of us, not to live in the past or the future, worrying about things that haven't happened yet, but to be present. Most of us don't.
Right.
So you're saying when you're around them, you can kind of communicate that same energy of being here now. That makes sense to me because of how big they are and how powerful they are, that if I'm not paying attention to right now, it could be danger or whatever. I don't have time to think about other things.
Exactly. Right. The other thing about horses is the fact that I find is phenomenal because they're one of the animals within the course of history of humankind that has been a servant of people, and on many different levels. And one of the things that fascinates me about them is that they are prey animals. And so by instinct, they should be afraid of us because we're predators.
Right.
But over the years, over the millennia, they have subjected themselves to humans and allowed themselves to be used by humans. But the more that we can be around them and have a neutral energy, sometimes we don't really realize that we're acting like predators,
Yeah.
But they, that's their instinct. They've been domesticated, but if something scares them, they can't help it. They're hardwired into that instinct of fight or flight,
Right.
So that's the only way I've ever been hurt by a horse, is some kind of something that startled them, and they didn't intend to hurt me, but I just happened to be in the way when they were trying to make their exit or something like that. So
right, and there's no malintent on their part in general, right? I've heard one experience I had. This is a long time ago. I was on a trail ride. This is in the Sierra Nevadas, and I was on a horse, and I was very nervous, and I was young, and didn't listen to authority very often, and just was not feeling comfortable. And the horse just kind of sat down right in the middle of the trail. And the leader told me, "Hey, just relax. He knows that you're not feeling it, and he's just trying to make it easy on you." And he said he's not gonna take off or anything. And I was confused by that. It was hard for me to imagine that this horse knew how I felt. But I've seen, because I know that you do work with horse therapy, right? At Henry's home.
Yes, and it's equine assisted learning. It's
Okay,
about
sorry.
personal growth. That's okay.
Yeah.
We're not therapists out
Okay,
here.
right.
But we leave that to the horse. The horses kind of, they come in and they do their work with the veterans. But we always get comments from, a lot of veterans suffer from silent injuries that we don't really understand, being civilians, but the horses can sense it, and they can help veterans with regulating their emotions, or just learning how to relax, or how to and it's something that, when practiced a while, really makes a difference and an impact in their overall well-being. So
That's cool. That's awesome. So how did your relationship with the horses then translate into your artwork? So let's transition a little bit now. Your art, we're sitting here at the Ardest Gallery. So thank you, Julie. Shout out to Julie in the Ardest Gallery.
Julie.
And you've been a part of this gallery since the very beginning. In fact, we go back a few years at the old location. And most of the themes I see in your work revolve around horses, equine art, and you are very well versed in a lot of different things. I'm just going to brag about you for a second. Like you seem to be really good at a lot of different things, and among those, I wrote down that you're good at printmaking, collage, abstracts, drawing, like the basics. You got the technical drawing skills, and then photography as well. I've seen a lot of different mixed media in your work. And so how did the love for horses translate into the artwork? Has it always been that way, or?
Well, I drew, you know, as a child. I piddled around and drew and everything. But then in college, I decided to major in art. And so I did. I got my my bachelor's at Sam Houston State University. And
Go Bearcats.
Right. The Bearcats. And anyway, I got out. When I got out, I didn't know what I was going to do, and I, just went into the job market. Not even thinking about, just doing art on the side and everything. Taking a few commissions here and there. Most of them were like horse portrait type things, and then I decided to go to graduate school. And so when we were talking about what was going to be my subject matter for the next 5 years, or however long it was going to take me, because I was working full time and had a child, I'm single parent. It's like kind of a big mixture of life things that get thrown at you. And they were like, well, make sure. My advisor said, and I told him, you're gonna regret telling me that. He said, make sure it's a subject that's near and dear to your heart, because you're gonna be working with it for 5 years, and I don't want you to, like, in the middle bail out and say, I can't do this anymore because it's too this or it's too that. I was like, there's really only one subject I know about that will stick with me for 5 years. Right. And so I just started working with that imagery, and I will have to say I was challenged by doing that, because there were so many voices out there saying, oh, that's such an old subject, it's so trite, it's so this, it's so banal, it's so and I was just like, but it's not to me, right. It's not to me. And I decided I wanted to focus not just on the physical attributes of the horse, but I started researching the iconography, how the horse has influenced so many different civilizations, and in what ways, and how many civilizations have their own version of the horse, and how much mythology is revolved around the horse. And I started just really becoming more involved and taking a deeper dive into it, and then realizing just how much beyond the enjoyment of being with the horse, smelling the horse, riding the horse, and all of that stuff, that I felt so enriched by what I was learning. And then I just couldn't, after the 5 years was up and I graduated, I just couldn't stop work. I'll just do this till I'm tired of it, and then I'll go to something else. Well, I'd paint a landscape here or there, or do something else, but I'll always come back to the horses, I'd always come back to the horses. So that's cool. And you could tell, you could tell that you know what your subject matter is, because you feel it. You feel that horse's energy in all your works. Talk to us a little bit about, what was your master's in? What was the Master of Fine Arts? Fine art. Okay, so, and they advise you to pick one subject matter, and you're just going to be painting that all the time. You're going to be working with it. You had other subjects you took too, but for your output, you were going to be working toward a senior exhibition or a graduate exhibition, and and under the scrutiny of your advisory team and what have you. So, it was quite a challenge. Well, you picked a great subject, because
like you said, the critics will say, well, that's kind of, tired. People have done that. It's been done. Well, yeah, but you're doing it in a totally different way. So when did it change for you? When did it change from the realism, the trying to get it just the way it is in the photograph kind of paintings to this mixed media, dreamlike?
It was kind of a
Version.
slow evolution at first. There was something in me that wanted to learn more about mixed media. And at the time I was in college, pretty much everything was separate disciplines. And then but I had so many interests. I loved photography. I didn't know that much about it, but I loved doing it. I loved paint, a little bit of painting, drawing, printmaking was in there. I taught art for 30 something years. And so in teaching all my students all these different techniques and media, I just started putting them together in my own work, and just kind of letting things blur the different divisions between the media started to blur. And I don't know, that's what really started I guess that's what really started making me have a voice, was because I started looking at the layering of things. And once I discovered the layering of things, I started thinking more in terms of, life, the way we live life, it's all made up in layers. It's layers of memories, it's layers of time, it's layers of experiences and events that some are insignificant, some are more significant, but they're all in there and they're all embedded one into the other. And to be able to see through some of those layers into some of those dimmer areas that go way back, but they're still there and they're still influencing us, that fascinated me. And so I started thinking in terms of layering, and then I found out, oh, there's some artists that are called layerists. I didn't even know that, so
I didn't know that either. That's what they're called?
Yeah,
Layerists.
layerists.
Okay.
And I was like, wow. So, and then one of my friends that I taught with said one time, he was asked if he was a painter, and he was like, I would say a better determination of that is I'm an image maker. And I was
cool.
like, okay, I like that, because yeah, sometimes I paint, sometimes I photograph, sometimes I combine that, sometimes some of my work even has like fibers in it, you know.
Yeah, I've seen it.
So
yeah.
And that goes way back, because when I was in high school, I really enjoyed sewing. And I really enjoyed fabrics, and I kept wondering, what do you do with all these little scraps of fabric? Did they just get thrown away? It's just a shame to just waste those. What happens with those? And I thought, well, you could become a fiber artist. I thought, see, there's a fiber artist right there.
Next one, yes.
And so I tried that a little bit, and I was like, well, I like that, but I don't know how I could fiber art a horse, and I'm not really into that. So slowly but surely, I just started figuring out ways. And then one day I discovered encaustic and using wax to help embed the layers. And I loved the translucent nature of that medium, and how it gave you sort of an ethereal feel to it. And
Totally.
I really, I was fascinated by that. So I started, playing around with that too. So I don't know, most of it has been, I call myself an experimental artist, because and that's what I tried to impart to my students is, don't label yourself, as a painter, that you have to be perfect at watercolor or you have to be perfect at oil painting. Think of yourself as willing to explore and willing to experiment with various things, and that will inform your work. And then you can always go back to what you really like, but at least taste and see what's out there.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And when I see your work, I see that you're kind of going on a deep dive. I don't know if you do this on purpose, if it's serial in nature, but I'll see a grouping of things that are kind of in the same exploration path. And then I'll see another set that are in a different exploration path. I think that's really, really interesting. I love artwork, and I've shared this before here, that I love artwork that makes me stop and scratch my head and say, how did she do that? Well, what is going on here? And like trying to peel back the layers. But I also like the mystery of it, that I don't ultimately know. In fact, I just found out that was fiber. I know that some of the stuff is fiber, I can tell, but I thought that maybe you used hair in some of your pieces, or I don't know if you have.
Horsehair, only horsehair.
Yes, that's what I meant, horsehair. But it kind of gives me that feel. I'm not 100% sure what you're doing or how you're doing it, but that sucks me in. That makes me want to look at it more.
Well, and that's the intent. You know, that's the ultimate goal, because I really want the viewer, when they look at my work, to have an experience with the work and not just, you know, go to a room and just take a 1 minute, you know, look around and then leave. If they leave my work that quickly, then I feel like I haven't done my job. I haven't made them want to see into it a little bit more.
And going back to what you said earlier, right? We all want to be present. So sitting down, looking at an artwork of yours forces us to be present and really focus on what's happening in the image. I like the image maker idea. I think I might steal that. I'm an image maker. On the business card. And the experimental aspect too. So you were an educator for, would you say 30 years? Okay. And I remember having a conversation with you one time telling me that you had to learn all these different mediums, processes, mediums. So that's what gave you, like you just explained to us, how you went on deep dives and then started incorporating it into your work. What I wonder is, what was the most aha experiment that you had? Was there one that stands out to you?
I remember the first time that I made a collage that I thought was successful, and it had started out. One of my little, I don't know if it's a secret or anything. I think all artists have this. You have like a pile of things that are not successful, and they go in a pile.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes they go in the trash pile, but a lot of times they just go in a drawer. And I learned to call those starts, because they weren't finished, they weren't complete, they certainly weren't successful as they were. But whenever I wanted to experiment with something, I'd take one of those, because in my mind, I didn't have anything to lose. You know, I was already, you know, a failure, or what, or maybe not a failure. Nothing's a failure in art or horses. But
I know what you mean.
Yeah, but anyway, I just felt less intimidated, rather than taking a brand new piece of paper and trying, you know, because there's just this, I don't know, there's an internal hesitation when you're starting brand new, and when you're taking something out that you think, I'll just, you know, try this or that, and you don't, you have reckless abandon with it, and sometimes that's your best voice. And so this one piece that I just was like kind of, you know, mediocre piece, I thought, and I just started thinking, okay, I'm going to try. And I had tried collages before, but I just couldn't seem to get the hang of it. You know, I just couldn't seem to get get it to look the way I wanted it to look. And so I started working on this piece, and all of a sudden, it started taking form, and it started actually, people laugh when you say the painting starts talking to you. You know, sort of like they laugh when they say the horse is talking to me. You know, sort of like the same thing.
Right.
But the painting starts telling you, okay, you need to put a little bit more of this color over on this side, or you need to balance this more, or you need a secondary focal point, or, you know, and you just start. And I learned, okay, when I do that, I just need to live with that. And sometimes I'd walk past it, you know, a week, you know, back and forth, just looking at it. And then something would come to mind that would make me, oh, this is what it needs. Sort of like tasting the soup, trying to figure out, does it need more garlic, or does it need more salt, you know? Right. And so I would say that was a big aha moment. And yeah, I've had several, but that was one of my biggest.
Yeah, I
So,
would say because collage is something that shows up a lot in
yeah,
your
it
paintings.
does now, and it didn't. I would say it. I would say that happened maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago when
Okay.
I really found that and started wanting to develop it more and started thinking, okay, I can. And then I started teaching. And when you start teaching it to someone else, that's when you really start feeling more confident in your
Yeah.
ability to do it. And so I would have my students we'd start with maybe a small photograph, and we would, and then I would tell them, okay, now you can't just let this be a photograph in the middle of this big piece of paper. It has to, you have to make a composition out of it. And how are
Right.
you going to do that? How are you going to let the photograph be, a focal point? Yes, but there's got to be a whole lot of other stuff going on in the piece as well for people to enjoy looking at it. So,
Right. And speaking of that, speaking of teaching, right, being an educator, obviously that was fulfilling to you, if you did it for that amount of time. Was there a student or two or more that really impressed you, that really got what you were teaching and kind of ran with it? Speak to that a little bit.
oh, and that is just the most fantastic moment when you have a student that is tracking along with your thought process and understanding where you're coming from. It's so enlightening, it's so rewarding, I guess is the best word, to want to pour more into that student because they're receiving what you're telling them. They're not just doing it for a grade.
Yeah.
They're doing it because they want to learn the process, and they may not stick with that process, but they're learning how to approach experimentation and how to approach thinking about their art and developing and becoming more mature as an artist. And that's just very, very rewarding for a teacher or a professor.
Yeah, I'm sure. What age group did you teach? Was it
Well,
high school?
for the first 20 years, I was at a university.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then,
adults?
Yes. Well,
Young adults.
yes, young adults.
Yeah.
And then
Getting there.
I had some life changes, and so then I moved and I started teaching high school, and I taught high school for 10 years.
Okay.
And it was it was a culture shock at first because the type of student is just different. And in public school is completely different from university life, and so it took some adjusting. But I had some great students, and we were a very competitive district, and I was so proud of my students. We would compete in the visual arts scholastic events, and we were in a region that I remember this one year I was on cloud 9 because I had 6 or 7 that went to state, and that was phenomenal. And then I had some that won top awards in the Houston Livestock Show, student art contest, and we did, and also quite a few in the scholastic student arts event. So I was just very proud of them and taught some AP. I don't know. And then I kind of as a side gig, I taught art appreciation over at Lone Star for a few semesters to people who worked during the day, and they were, doing college work at night. So that was a whole different kind of student. And I found that I enjoyed teaching people how to look at art and how to read art and become visually literate. Regardless of what their personal opinion about art was, they could learn to appreciate things, even if they didn't like it personally. There's still lots of ways to appreciate something, and so I found that very rewarding too. And that was just a little side thing that I didn't really expect. It was like kind of a little gift.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, because the more people appreciate art, the better we are.
Yeah.
Right? The better off we are.
Exactly.
To me, it seems like it would be a little different situation if the high school students are excelling, because you have to think in university they're probably art focused, right? That's what they're there for. They're studying that. whereas in high school, maybe they got a million different things going on. And so if you can kind of lead them down the path of their talents, their natural talents, that's got to be rewarding, I would think.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. So teaching the experiments to your students, was there ever an experiment that didn't go well, that you said, I'm not trying that again? I'm just curious.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I'm so sure there are. I think sometimes printmaking can be a little bit tricky, not tricky, but it can. One of the things that's the excitement about printmaking, but also the scary part about printmaking is when you roll that through the press. And your first peek to see, how it's coming out, because you don't know when you're making a printing plate, you can't tell how that's going to print until you run a proof. And I think one of the things I used to always be afraid of is, like, if I was doing a demo, for example, and I wasn't using a press, and something, the consistency of the ink or the absorption of the paper or something wouldn't be just perfect conditions, and then when I would pull it off, it was like, that too much pressure on that one, sorry, and sometimes, but it also teaches that not every single piece is a masterpiece, no matter what you do and how well you do it. You're always going to have some images that come out better than others. And so the one I would teach my students, I like to work with monotypes, because then there's not the pressure of everything has to be exactly the same like you do when you edition something, because when you edition it all has to be consistently, accurate. Right. But in monotyping, you have a little more leeway. But so when I was editioning things, there would be a scrap pile, like I was mentioning earlier, where this part printed perfectly, but then there's a mess up there. I didn't have the pressure just right up there. Well, it'd go in here, and then I would use it for experimental things. I might go back in and draw on it, and change it up.
Starter pieces.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. Those starter pieces.
That's the sort of thing that I would think. It wouldn't be an experiment gone wrong. It would just go into the starter pile.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so the something else. This piece wants to be something else besides just number 5 in an edition of 10. It wants to be something else. So we'll let it sit there for a while. When we think of what it can be, we'll go for it.
Right. Cool. Well, where do you, when you're coming up with ideas, where do they come from? Do you keep a sketchbook? Do you wake up in the middle of the night with an idea, or how do you come to your compositions?
Some of those, some or all of those, all of the above kind of thing. I do keep sketchbooks, but I'm not religious about it, and so a lot of times my sketchbook is my camera. I always have my cell phone, and I have been known, like this one time I was coming home from an event out near Cat Spring, and I was leaving there, and when I was driving down their dirt road driveway to the gate, there were these 3 horses, and the way they were positioned in the field, and the light, it was getting late in the day, the way the light and the shadows, I had to stop. I had to stop, pull over, and take some photos right there and try different composition. And one thing I like about doing that with a cell phone is you can sort of develop your composition through your cell phone, and that gives you your idea, or you can modify it slightly when you get ready to put it into production. And so I just, sometimes that's how I work,
That's cool.
But I always try to work from my own photographs. I don't go I don't glean or get pictures of horses off of the internet or anything like that. So all these pieces that you see here, unless they're, sometimes I work with make a stencil of a horse that I've photographed, and it takes it 2 or 3 generations out of the realism mode into a more abstract mode. And so sometimes I use those in my work too. So
That's
it just
cool.
depends on how much I want to emphasize the horsiness of it or the more ethereal part of it.
Mm-hmm. And as you're doing it, since you do work in layers, do you have an idea do you have a plan of where you're going usually, or do you just kind of let things evolve naturally?
I don't try to overplan. I don't. I usually just, start with a concept or an idea, but I really do try to leave it open to the process. I'm really pretty much about the process, and then sometimes it takes me a while to figure out if I'm done.
Yeah.
I have to wait because the process, because you can overdo it. You can continue, just keep working on it until you've just overdone it.
Yeah.
So sometimes, usually I try to get my bigger areas kind of mapped out first, and then when it comes down to, it's usually the details that cause you to overwork something. And so you have to remember what to leave. You might not want everything in the picture to be the same detail as you have, so you have to learn how to control, have a little control toward the end, but at the beginning, let the creativity flow and just kind of playful attitude toward it, not too precious,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So, and then go from there.
Yeah. Well, you have a good knack for that, because I don't see any of your work as being overdone at all. It just seems just right.
Yeah,
You just got it right. But, again, your experience and having made all these experiments, I'm sure has a lot to say about that. So it's also, you kind of alluded to this, but just showing up every day and doing the work, whether it's good or bad, just show up, and over time, your skills will develop.
I had one professor who actually just gave me permission to make bad art.
Oh,
and that
good.
was one of the best things that I could have heard at the time, because I was under pressure in my graduate program, and he was just like, just make art. Don't critique it. Just make it. And then after you're done, pick and choose the ones that are the best, and the others, they were the steps to that one, or
exactly.
they were, yeah. So so I was like, okay, a different way of looking at things. Those were all the encouraging voices that I heard along the way. There's a lot of discouraging voices too, but
Sure.
the one you hang on to the ones that are
Yeah.
encouraging.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things I remember most was just go ahead and just make as much as you can. I think it was a summer school class, and I just don't know if I can. No, don't sit there and figure out and fuss over this one piece for 3 days, because in
Right.
summer school, your whole semester's up in 5 weeks.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you just make a lot of work,
Right.
and then we'll deal with it.
Yeah. I love that. I think
Yeah.
that's a great takeaway too. Just make bad art. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Let yourself do it. You can always have them as a starter piece if you need to.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I wanted to mention too, and this is a little bit on a personal note,
Sure.
but when I see your work, I see an extreme sense of peace and calm. I don't know if you mean to do that or if you intend to do that, but that's what I get from it. And this is before I even really knew you as a person. But then, when I did get to know you a little bit better, in fact, just a personal story, like when I gave my life to the Lord, when I gave my life to Jesus, you were one of the first people to reach out to me and share in that joy. And I feel like every time I look at your art, I have that joy. There's something that's at peace there. And I just wanted to bring that up and ask you, how does your faith play into your artwork?
Well, thank you for asking that, because it really does. Okay, two things. One is, when I was experiencing my graduate program and looking at art that people in the program were producing, looking at art just in general, the postmodern period just has so much angst and so much, I don't know.
Like vitriol.
Yes,
Right?
yes. And people,
Yeah.
and I realized people were making statements about things that are injustice and all this, and we need that. We need that to shake us up. But a steady diet of that at all times with no reprieve can really put you in a bad headspace.
Yeah.
And I went to a conference one summer, and it was to learn how to collage. And this particular professor that was teaching it, and I was a professor also, but I would go to do these like conferences sometimes during the summer as a self-enrichment or to learn something new that I could teach in my classes. And he shared his process with our class, and it just hit me right in the heart. And he said that for him, his art practice was a worship experience. And how he would approach it was he would take and he made small, he was a printmaker also, but he would take small pieces of substrate that he was going, and he'd lay out his work table in 12s. He'd have 6 on one side, 6 on the other, and he said, and that has a significance if you understand the biblical context.
Yeah.
And he said, and what he would do is he would pray first, and then he would search the scriptures for a few minutes, have a little worship time to kind of get the mood set, and then he'd put on his worship music, and he'd just literally zone out, just go to each paper and just start putting things on each paper. And he just worked the table. And he said, and then he would, at the end of the period, whether he worked on it for 4 hours or whatever, he'd sit back and then he'd look at what he did. And he said some of the times I was really surprised because I was in such a zone, I wasn't really paying attention to everything. I was just working instinctively and kind of letting the Spirit move me to do these things. And I just thought that was the most fascinating thing. I had never heard an artist talk about an approach like that.
Yeah.
And so I don't do the same thing, but I do also consider my work to be, I feel like God made me an artist for a reason. He gave me this voice. It's a visual voice, and he wants me to share it. And so I do try to put myself in a situation where I'm open to his leading or his nudging, and that's how. If the peace comes through, that's very nice to know because I'm at peace when I'm working on these things. So
yeah, for me it seems very intentional, and like I said, even before I knew you, it seemed like when I see your artwork, it just makes me take a deep breath and just be still and like I said, peaceful. So that's really cool to hear, and I'm going to try that. I have to try that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good. I mean, I learned a lot from that, and so ever after that, I learned to, especially if I'm working on a series of some sort, I'll work on multiple pieces at one time, and that's what I used to tell my students because they were always concerned about deadlines, and I was like, have 3 or 4 ideas and work on all 3 of them at the same time. Don't just work on one start to finish, I said, because you limit yourself and you get yourself so uptight that way over the deadlines that then you can't do your best work. But if you're just doing this at as a series, and then it comes out better. It works better.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been really cool, Melanie. I appreciate you talking to me.
Well, thank you.
Before we leave, though, I want to ask you some rapid-fire questions.
Okay. I don't know how fast I think, but okay.
No pressure.
Okay.
No pressure. So these are, either or, yes, no kind of questions.
Okay.
Usually I'm going to give you the answer within the question.
Oh, okay.
But the idea behind this is it allows us to get to know you a little bit better and kind of hear the story within the story. And there's a little bit of mystery because we don't know exactly why you made the choice that you make, but it tells us a lot.
Okay.
And it's fun.
Okay,
right?
it's
right?
fun.
Let's have some fun. Okay. So the first one is coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee. Got it. Me too. Yeah, I don't know any other way. Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Nice. Plan or no plan?
I'm kind of in the middle on that. I like no plan sometimes, but when it creates crisis, I need a plan.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense. Okay. Outside or inside?
outside.
Outside. That makes sense. Can't have a horse inside, right?
Not too often.
No. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Savory. Nice. Sketch or no sketch?
No sketch.
Cool. It seems like you probably could paint or draw horses from memory at this point, right? You just go right into it. City block or country road?
Country road.
Again, makes total sense.
Yeah.
Comedy or drama?
Comedy.
Right. We all need to laugh, right? Up late or up early?
Up late.
Up late. Books or movies?
Books.
Long walk or long drive?
Oh, I love a long drive.
Yeah?
Yeah, I love road trips.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
I get a lot of thinking done in a road trip.
Isn't that
Yeah.
amazing how you can do that? Yeah, while you're on the open road. Cool. Create with music or no music?
Oh, music.
All right. What type of music do you listen to generally?
Either classical or there's an artist that I listen to a lot. His name is Xander Stock, and he puts scripture to music. He's a musician himself, and he does a new scripture every week. And so I have a playlist, and I put him on, and he just sings the scriptures to me while I'm working. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's kind of fun.
All right. Xander, what was his last name?
Stock, S-T-O-K.
Okay, I'll have to check that out.
He's Dutch.
Okay, cool. How about ride a horse or paint a horse? That's tough, right?
Yeah, at this stage in life, right now, I would probably paint the horse. Although, I don't ride that much anymore, but I definitely need to be in close proximity with them. I mean, they're my friends. They're my best friends, so.
Yeah, and I know you work with Henry's Home. Is there, do you have your own?
I have 3 horses.
Right, okay. So you spend time, you feed them, you talk to them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We have conferences.
Yeah. I'm sure they know you too when you walk in the door there.
Oh, yeah. They
Like, where you been?
check me out for, got any treats, got anything for us? Yes. But they also, I have one that really likes to learn. He really likes to learn to get past scary things, and he's an Arabian, and he just has this very kind of skittish perception of life, and so it always just makes me feel so good when I can get him to follow me across an object that he has previously been terrified of, and now he's willing to walk with me over it. And there's so many spiritual metaphors about that.
Of course, yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm going to do this only because you're walking with me. And sort of like, that's how I kind of see myself with God.
Well, like we were talking earlier before we started, fear not.
Yes.
For I am with you.
Yes.
Good to remember. Okay, work large or work small?
Oh, recently I worked smaller. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last one here, one painting at a time or many at a time? We already know the answer, but.
One painting at a time or many at a time? Yeah, many at a time.
Of course.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we're thankful for that because it's given us a wide variety of works to see. Everyone, go visit Melanie Wade Leslie's work here at the Ardest Gallery. I'm also going to tell you about your social media. We got Instagram, Melanie Leslie _art, and we'll put it up here on the screen so people can see. And also your website, melaniewadeleslie.com. Right, lots of great work up there. Melanie, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I've enjoyed talking with you about this.
Me too.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Okay.
All right, well, let's do it again.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Peace.
Peace.